Hello again. Today's reading is from homily number 56 by St. John Chrysostom on the Gospel of Matthew. And I'm going to start with section 3, which begins as follows. But wherefore doth he bring also forward Moses and Elias? One might mention many reasons. And first of all this, because the multitude said he was some Elias, some Jeremiah, some one of the old prophets. He brings the leaders of his choir that they might see the difference even hereby between the servants and the Lord, and that Peter was rightly commended for confessing him Son of God. But besides that, one may mention another reason also, that because men were continually accusing him of transgressing the law, and accounting him to be a blasphemer, as appropriating to himself a glory which belonged not to him, even the fathers, and were saying, This man is not of God, because he keepeth not the Sabbath day. And again, for a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God, that both the charges might be shown to spring from envy. And he proved not liable to either. And that neither is his conduct a transgression of the law, nor his calling himself equal to the Father an appropriation of glory not his own. He brings forward them who had shown out in each of these respects. Moses, because he gave the law, and the Jews might infer that he would not have overlooked its being trampled on, as they supposed, nor have shown respect to the transgressor of it, and the enemy of its founder. Elias too, for his part, was jealous for the glory of God, and were any man an adversary of God, and calling himself God, making himself equal to the Father, while he was not what he said, and had no right to do so, he was not the person to stand by and hearken unto him. And one may mention another reason also with those which have been spoken of. Of what kind then is it? To inform them that he hath power both of death and life, its ruler both above and beneath. For this cause he brings forward both him that had died, and him that never yet suffered this. But the fifth motive, for it is a fifth, besides those that have been mentioned, even the evangelist himself hath revealed. Now what was this? To show the glory of the cross, and to console Peter and the others in their dread of the passion, and to raise up their minds, since having come they by no means held their peace, but spake, it is said, of the glory which he was to accomplish at Jerusalem, that is, of the passion and the cross, for so they call it always. And not thus only did he cheer them, but also by the excellency itself of the men, being such as he was especially requiring from themselves. I mean that having said, If any man will come after me, let him take up his cross and follow me, them that had died 10,000 times for God's decrees, and the people entrusted to them, these persons he sets before them. Because each of these, having lost his life, found it, for each of them both spake boldly unto tyrants, the one to the Egyptian, the other to Ahab, and in behalf of heartless and disobedient men. And by the very persons who were saved by them, they were brought into extreme danger, and each of them wishing to withdraw men from idolatry, and each being unlearned, for the one was of a slow tongue and dull of speech, and the other for his part also somewhat of the rudest in his bearing. And of voluntary poverty both were very strict observers, for neither had Moses made any gain, nor had Elias aught more than his sheepskin, and this under the old law, and when they had not received so great a gift of miracles. For what if Moses clave a sea, yet Peter walked on the water, and was able to remove mountains, and used to work cures of all manner of bodily diseases, and to drive away savage demons, and by the shadow of his body to work these wonderful and great prodigies, and changed the whole world? And if Elias too raised a dead man, yet these raised 10,000, and this before the Spirit was as yet vouchsafed to them. He brings them forward accordingly for this cause also, for he would have them emulate their winning ways toward the people, and their presence of mind and inflexibility, and that they should be meek like Moses, and jealous for God like Elias, and full of tender care as they were. For the one endured a famine of 3 years for the Jewish people, and the other said, If thou wilt forgive them their sin, forgive, else blot me too out of the book which thou hast written. Now of all this he was reminding them by the vision. For he brought those in glory too, not that these should stay where they were, but that they might even surpass their limitary lines. For example, when he said, Should we command fire to come down from heaven, and made mention of Elias as having done so, he saith, Ye know not what manner of spirit ye are of, training them to forbearance by the superiority in their gift. And let none suppose us to condemn Elias as imperfect. We say not this, for indeed he was exceedingly perfect, but in his own times, when the mind of man was in some degree childish, and they needed this kind of schooling. Since Moses too was in this respect perfect, nevertheless these have more required of them than he. For except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. For not into Egypt did they enter, but into the whole world, worse disposed than the Egyptians. Neither were they to speak with Pharaoh, but to fight hand to hand with the devil, the very prince of wickedness. Yea, and their appointed struggle was both to bind him and to spoil all his goods. And this they did, cleaving not the sea, but an abyss of ungodliness, through the rod of Jesse, an abyss having waves far more grievous. See at any rate how many things there were to put the men in fear: death, poverty, dishonor, their innumerable sufferings. And at these things they trembled more than the Jews of old at that sea. But nevertheless, against all these things he persuaded them boldly to venture, and to pass, as along dry ground, with all security. And that is the end of the reading. Glory be to God for all things.